Hey, I see us now. Yay. All right, we are live on the air on Facebook and on Twitch. And my name is Nathan Moore. This is Kyle Hogg, Steve Moore. Good to see you too.
Good
And
to
this
be
is
here.
Jabber John, episode 12.
Never thought we'd make it this
I
far.
know, right? We're crushing.
It's pretty amazing.
He said something funny on the way over here. I said, episode 12, he said, a lot of people probably never thought we'd make it that far. And a lot of people probably don't even realize we had.
Well, there's been a few of those, I'm sure.
Well, it always takes, since we just went live on people's Facebook pages, there's not an instant audience. So there's always that awkward 10 minutes at the beginning as
Right.
people are stumbling into the stream, wondering what the heck is going on in here. Share. If you're just seeing us on your Facebook wall, go ahead and let all your friends know we're live on the air and talk to us. We got the chat here in front of us. I'll be able to see you, and we can figure it all out here. So what are we going to talk about tonight?
It's a good question. I was thinking that this was a spring day.
Feels like it, right?
And it was like, 80 degrees here in Stanton, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley. And everybody went to the park that didn't have to go to work. And it was a beautiful day.
Did you go to the park?
I did not make it to the park, but I did make it to my porch. And I had three of my best friends stop by separately, independently, and I talked. We talked longer than usual.
Oh, these are actual human beings?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you meant birds.
No, but the birds were moving around. The sparrows were all over the place.
Were these your so-called friends that stopped by?
Yeah, sometimes that's all you got,
That's nice you have friends stop by.
Well, it doesn't happen all the time, but I always appreciate it, especially since I'm not getting out myself. And I worry a little bit that they watched Jabber Jawn last week and think I'm dead.
Right,
And
well,
they're coming by to check on me to make sure I haven't died yet.
You should tell them the story your friend told you today that you told me.
Now, what was that? Just that he made me laugh. We made him laugh. Yeah, Joe McHugh, said he watched us one night and he couldn't think of it at the moment, but he's my age, so we're always having trouble thinking of anything. But he said he watched it one night and got to laughing so hard he just was just laughing hard out loud in his room.
that mission accomplished.
Exactly, that's the way I felt about it.
Yeah.
Like, that is wonderful.
Well, I've got something. Laura Pohl, my dear friend from New Jersey, was so worried or upset that you didn't know who Ernie Kovacs was.
Oh my goodness.
That she sent you both little Ernie Kovacs zines
What?
and little archive zines about Trenton, New Jersey.
God, how sexy are these little zines?
Now,
God.
what's her
Oh my
relationship to Ernie?
goodness.
She's been a big Ernie Kovacs fan ever since I've known her.
Did they date?
No.
No.
We tap
You
on the screen.
don't run into that many Ernie
I
Kovacs.
know.
Are these like the same or different?
Yeah, she sent you.
Look at this.
She sent
Well,
you both
thank
the same.
her. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, she watches every week.
I'm going to go home and study them. That's wonderful. I do not have any of these. I'm pretty sure. What a cool.
I didn't
Now,
know these things existed.
Yeah,
what are they?
I
Are they like baseball
They're like
cards?
little magazines.
was
We're gonna
talking.
need a magnifying glass.
I was talking to her after every show we text back and forth, and I was like, they didn't even know who Ernie Kovacs was. And she goes, we have little zines made about Ernie. I'll send them.
So are these seem to be about all different things.
She runs a little zine project that was like the independent little produced magazine. So she gets all kinds of stuff in the mail now, and she does at the library. She makes a lot of the zines and. So maybe you can learn something about Ernie Kovacs. Yeah.
Looks like you could be an authority.
Oh, he died in a crash.
And the funny thing is, his real name was Ernie Kovacs Stan. No, I'm just kidding.
Trenton, New Jersey. So he was on the radio there?
I think he had a TV show. She sent me one too. I haven't read it. But when I was living up there, I was about to say with her. I wasn't living with her, but I hung out with her. She always, was a big fan of Ernie. That any books that came out or recordings or whatever, she was really into that.
Was he?
I think he was like a Soupy Sales type guy. Who else were those type of people back then?
Was he controversial at all?
Not really.
I don't think he could be too controversial on TV back then.
On TV.
He wasn't like a Lenny Bruce type. Or
That's what I was wondering.
He was funny.
Yeah.
That's cool. These are fun. It's just inspiring to see people make things like this. It's like just to hold it, and I love it so much.
Well, I was telling you how like every couple of weeks she just sends me a big bag of books, big box of books, and sometimes it's just an envelope just stuffed with 20 of those things. I'm like, oh my God. But then I don't know what to do with them. Like, do I put them away or do I hang them on the wall and display them? What do I do with them?
It always amazes me as sort of a tangent, but you look at old books from like 100 years ago or something, and I know it was because to save paper and ink, but the print is so small. And back then they had worse lighting.
Right.
They had worse glasses. They had worse everything, but they still
They had worse eyes.
What's that?
They had worse eyes.
They had worse eyes, right?
I'm sure, because they didn't have the glasses.
Well, it's weird. I'm reading the Notebooks of Raymond Chandler now.
Oh wait, he was a sci-fi guy.
He wrote like early detective novels and stuff.
What was his?
Sam's. Oh no, what was his? Was it Sam Spade?
Sam Spade.
Yeah, but he just kept notebooks of like good one-liners or like good names to use or whatever. But he would write it all, and then his they couldn't have been dirt poor, but he would write them all on a piece of paper. Then his wife would type it, but not on another piece of paper, but right over where he had written it. So he would just have like a piece of paper with all his handwriting on the bottom that her typed it out on the top.
Wow.
I was like, man, that was back in the day when you really had to recycle.
Really had to think about it.
Saving paper.
Yeah, I like that.
No, God, why can't I think of the name of his guy? Like Farewell, My Love. I mean, I think Farewell, My Lovely. A bunch of really good books.
I've heard of Sam Spade.
Hard-nosed detective.
Oh yeah.
Realistic type stuff.
How far into Bosch did you get?
1.5 or 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up not liking him, and not for probably the normal reasons, but there were just a few scenes that I didn't like the way
Put
he
you off him. Put you off him.
Yeah. Yeah, I just couldn't get with him. I mean, I understood him, and I see the character, but all these shows are doing that. That new one that I was telling you about, the girl, April Fool. No, I was telling you about it.
Yeah, I never found it.
I knew it last week when you were in Alabama. But she, it's the same way. There's certain things about her I like, and it wasn't her so much as the plots. I'm really a stickler for getting the plots right, and so, they twist the plot in a certain way, so that they can do a certain thing with the rest of the show. But I'll look at that and say, well, that wouldn't happen in real life.
Right.
That's not a good way of analyzing that, because anybody that saw that wouldn't have asked that question. They would ask this question. And if you ask this question, then a lot of
Then
that,
you'd have the answer.
then you have the answer, and we have to end the show after 14 minutes. But which is okay, because they could do 25 commercials, which is what they wanted to do anyway. But it doesn't work for me.
It is frustrating.
So, but I've tried Bosch. Oh, you know the one I'm thinking about.
Midsummer.
No. It's the girl that can tell if you're lying or not. And every plot, it would be over after 5 minutes, because she'll look at this guy and I'll say, well, if you know he's lying, why are you still talking to him? Yeah, it's, I don't know. But also the plots just, they're really reaching in Hollywood these days. There's just so many shows. It's just hard. Somebody on Facebook, Adam, that Adam person, Adam said that he thought he was watching that show that I can't think of the name of. April? No, it's something.
It's a detective thing?
It's a girl, and she travels around. Some great characters, but I just haven't liked the plots. But she has this gift that she can tell when you're lying or not.
Oh, right.
It's on Peacock.
Wow.
It's their main thing right now. But he was saying it reminded him of Monk, which I don't necessarily go along with. But there's
like
another one that's on that's like Trent.
Heather's watching that now.
That guy is Monk.
Yeah.
He really reminds me of Monk.
But he has the social, like he's more,
He's better.
yeah. But yeah, I said
Yeah,
that too.
but then Bosch has got his own set of problems that I don't know anybody. He's not copying anybody else, but part of the whole plot of the thing is getting into the character of these guys. And like for Bosch, a lot of times I don't like all of the gratuitous violence. But with Bosch, I didn't like the lovemaking scene. For some reason, it bothered me. There's something about it. I said, he wouldn't do that. You can't make him this guy for half the show, and then all of a sudden he's in bed acting like the nicest guy in the world. When he's been an asshole for 20 minutes. I don't know. But I might be wrong. But it doesn't have anything to do with being right or wrong. It's just how you feel when you watch the show. We're all looking for somebody we can identify with.
Poker Face.
Yeah, that works.
That was in the chat. Is that the name of the show?
I think so.
It wasn't Sam Spade. It was Philip Marlowe was the detective that.
Oh, right.
Philip Marlowe.
I know that name.
Classic name, yeah.
So I'm just making sure that we're actually live at the moment. Because it says on my Facebook, was live. I don't know what that means.
Well, it's funny talking about a show has to be believable. Raymond Chandler actually had a chapter in his notebooks, he wrote about that in his notebooks. He's like, it can't be like Sherlock Holmes or Agatha Christie, where like no reader can ever figure it out. Like it's just like a normal person can't figure out what's going on because it's just they solve it. You're like, oh, that's good. It's a good story, but you can never solve. A good mystery has to be able, like you feel like you could have solved it if you had just thought. If you were a little bit smarter or had thought about it more.
Right. Very good point.
Right.
I found that true with when I was analyzing Midsummer Murders.
Right.
I realized at a certain point that I never knew who did it because there was no way I could.
Right.
They didn't give you that clue early on that would lead you there. It actually gave you clues that would mislead you into going somewhere else.
That's what he said. Agatha Christie just has these things. You're just like, how in the world? Or like Sherlock Holmes, like there's 1,001 clues, but like none of them really you know, like that would have never led me there. You know,
Right.
It's like, you
The
know,
thing that made him so interesting is how he figured it out where you never would.
right, right.
But I mean, this is so funny that we're talking about this because it was just last week or something. I had the idea for a show, maybe even like a kids level show, but of a mystery series that was super easy to figure out.
Right.
And how that's the whole point. Like that you'd play it with your friends, you'd watch the show and be like, oh, there's no way the ice would have melted. Like
Right.
something that's not that hard to figure out. Like even doing it for kids would be a fun place to start. Like a little cartoon series or something. But where the whole point of it is that you can figure this out.
Well,
Not everybody will, but it's not so obscured.
and you know, based on science.
Yeah, it's
Where
make
you
it
can,
something
you know,
really super
You're
obvious.
teaching a science lesson.
That anybody in the room could be like, oh, I know. It's because, which I've never had that feeling
Right.
watching any of these because they want to obscure it to make the person that
Well,
figures it out
they'll what do you call that when they send you a false
a red herring.
red herring,
Yeah.
which I've never
Where does that come
understood.
from?
It's a good question.
Red herring.
We need help
That's a
from
fish,
our
right?
parents. The herring is a fish.
well, I think I might have talked about this before, but me and my mom and my brother played this game called Hunt a Killer.
Hunt a killer.
And every month they send you it's 6 months, so every month they send you a box, and it always says, you know, you should be able to figure this out in like 1 to 2 hours. And we're like up like 8 hours later, me and my brother pounding beers, and like, they were trying. Then we finally get it like 8 hours later. Yes, you're like, it's like,
What are they like mystery stories?
it's a 6-box mystery.
Wow.
6 what?
It's like 6 boxes of mysteries, but it comes with everything. It comes with like
Each box is a different mystery.
well, no, each mystery has 6 boxes. So
Good
like
Lord.
so
Let's do this.
so you'll get one that'll have like autopsy photos and like a actual ring and like the bloody stuff, and then all these clues, and you have to try to figure it out. And it always says 1 to 2 hours, and me and my brother are like, oh, it's 2 hours. We don't even have any clue, but
It's 2 hours and 4 beers is what it is.
but it is so. It's so fun when, like you said, when we figured it out, we're like high fiving, you know, like my mom's like, "How did y'all figure that out?" I'm like, get out of the way, you know, like we're so excited.
I've never
like a
heard
lot
of
of
that.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
I've never heard of
Well,
that.
I mean, there's Target sells one you can buy. It's just like one game on one, and it says like 2 to 3 hours. We'll be there. Like my brother will come like on a Saturday. We'll be there like the whole day. You know, like let's eat another meal. Come on, we can't go on. But the thing is, it makes you wonder. How do cops ever figure out anything? I mean, once you figure it out, it all makes sense. But to get your brain to like stop looking at all the stuff, that, like you said, the stuff that they just try to, you know, these little clues don't mean anything. And then when you get directed in the right direction, oh man, that is a great feeling.
But that's the whole fun of it.
Yeah.
Of a lot of the shows that, you know, when you talking about mysteries,
Yeah.
that's why you watch, is the thrill of
Yeah.
watching. And a lot of shows, there's a lot of shows that's the gambit. That's what they do.
But he also had in his notebook, so there's 3 types of readers. There's the guesser, who doesn't even care if it's a well-written story. They just want to be able to guess who the killer is, you know, or whatever. Like they're like, you know, the second chapter, I know who it is. Like they're not even caring that you wrote like a beautiful, you know, a beautiful description or anything. And then there's people that just want a good story. They don't even care really who did it. They just want,
Really?
you know, to be entertained. And then there's the third is like the readers that try to go along and try to figure it out with you. So like they said, there's different ways to write for different, you know, types of readers. Like my father would, like, we'd go watch a TV show, like the first commercial, it was Mr. Smith. Like, how do you know that? And he just, I know it's Mr. Smith. Like the show is over for him, you know. Like I figured it out. Let's watch something else now. It's like, no, you don't.
Wow.
Sir.
Now here's a family story. When I was a child, I have very real memories of the family. I'd finish my homework, and we'd come in. I'd have Mama and Mom, and Vicky was probably on the phone talking to a boy, but Matt would be there. He'd be eating his popcorn, and Perry Mason.
Oh yeah.
We watched Perry Mason together. But we watched that show, and of course I never got him. I was always just wondering. And then they actually, usually what they would do would be to have that end and it would get exciting. Then they'd go to commercial and they'd come back and he would announce in that
Right.
last 5 minutes who did it.
Right.
And we had a family tradition that my father, Claude Moore, would always say right there at the end when it would go, when that music would start, he'd say, I told you. That's exactly who I told you would do it. And he would get it. He never missed one.
But did he tell you?
No, he never said a word. That was the first time he would talk. But it got to be, we would all wait for it to happen. You know, just like, good job, Dad. But
Just who I said it would be.
that's exactly who I told you it was earlier. Remember? Yes, sir. But I remember that distinctly.
They show those old Perry Masons on the antenna.
Yeah, I love it.
Hey, Percy.
Did you ever watch Murder, She Wrote?
That's a good one.
Not a whole lot. I have watched them, and now I have. But when they were out originally, I didn't get into them for whatever reason.
I watched this old movie this week, The Man on the Eiffel Tower. And there's a French detective writer, Simonon, like a just really great detective writer. And it was based on one of his stories. And Burgess Meredith, you know who that is?
Oh, yeah.
He directed the movie back when he was like young. He's in the movie. And it's just beautiful characters, you know. Isn't that weird thing before they really had color? It was just like, you know, black and white and red and like a pale blue, you know. It's like it was just weird. Like you thought you were like high watching it. Like what in the world? Why do they have colors in this thing? But at the end, they're on the Eiffel Tower, and I guess back then you could just get on the Eiffel Tower and fool around like a monkey. I mean, I could barely watch it. I was getting I was like losing my balance sitting in the chair. Like, oh my God, they were like climbing on the Eiffel Tower, and the camera was like, you know, looking down. Oh man, I was like, this is the most scariest movie I've ever seen, because I thought I was gonna like fall out of my chair. I was losing my balance so much. Oh my God! But those old movies back then are just so. I mean, a lot of those old mystery ones are better than nowadays, you know.
Mm-hmm. The simplicity,
Yeah.
the limits, the limitations.
Yeah. And like you said, there's no graphic violence or anything. They had, you know, everything was more just
Implied.
in your, yeah. Like one of the guys hangs himself, but they don't even show it. They show a shadow of some legs swinging back and forth, you know.
Well, here's a comment along those lines. I think it was Bosch the other night. They had somebody that was killed, and they were laying there. Their bone, you could see the skeleton, and it was like Jello. He had melted or something.
Oh,
the
God.
body. It was the grossest thing I think I've ever seen in my whole life. I don't need to see
You
that.
don't need to see that.
That does not need to be in my brain, going around thinking. That just why? And they're just getting desperate.
I'm that way with all the medical shows. I just can't do it. That's the one thing I can't handle. It's like ER or Grey's Anatomy or whatever.
When
They gotta do it. All they're opening up his chest. Let's just show it. And it just hits my nerve.
Yeah.
And one of the things, like anybody getting a shot or drawing blood, oh my God, I can't watch that. I've been a diabetic for like 100 years, so I've given myself, you know, 10,000 shots. And I can do that, but if I see something on TV, I'm like, I used to tell my wife, tell me when it's over. She's like, you can't watch a shot on TV. I'm like, no, I get like, oh.
I can watch like a horror movie that's a little gruesome or whatever. I mean, I don't like it, but it doesn't do nearly the same thing to me as like the medical
Right.
stuff.
That's-
It's just
and
too
that-
close to home. It's too close to home. I don't like thinking about it. Don't want to see it. Can you check on Facebook, make sure that we're on there?
It says, on one of them it says streaming, and the one below it, it says unable to connect.
Unable to connect. That explains it.
I certainly have had that problem in my life.
Now, do you remember what night Perry Mason came on?
Good question.
Well, back then was TV. Did every night have the show you had to watch on that night? Was it like that back then? Or?
I don't remember. Wagon Train was Friday night. It wasn't Friday night.
Did you ever watch Wild Wild West?
Yeah, I watched it. But
Which one? I don't remember that one.
James, what's his name? Oh my God, he was a cowboy.
it was
Artemis
that
Gordon was his sidekick. James West.
Yeah, that was a lot later.
Yeah.
You're younger. But yeah,
There were
no,
so
I'm
many
not sure.
westerns back in the day.
Oh,
I would say
It's the whole
Thursday
thing.
night would be my guess, but
Perry
I don't know.
Mason.
Might have been Saturday night because we had the whole crew around.
Did you ever watch Wild Kingdom?
Oh yeah, Sunday evening, 5 o'clock.
No, Wild Kingdom came on right before Disney, didn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked what was the guy's name?
Oh my God.
And I got it. Marlon Perkins.
Marlon Perkins. Yeah.
Was that all antennas back then?
No, we had regular TV.
No, like when he was a kid. That would have been like
Oh yeah.
just an antenna, right? So it had to be a local broadcasting.
Well, I got 6 and 12 out of Richmond, and we got Channel 5, WTTG out of Washington,
Mm-hmm.
and then we got the Harrisonburg station. So there were, I don't know that Charlottesville Channel 4 was, I think it was out of, Channel 4 was out of Washington too back then.
Now remember when Marlon Perkins? Remember when he got really old? They brought in that younger guy that was with
The
him?
younger guy did it for a long time.
Yeah, what was his name?
And
Jim
that's, I
something.
knew you were going to ask. That pisses me off.
Now how about Jacques Cousteau? Did you watch that?
What?
Jacques Cousteau, the guy that went underwater. That was the deep sea.
That was like National Geographic style stuff, right?
I don't know.
It wasn't fiction, right? Or,
No, it was realistic. He would go under the water. He had a famous boat. He would go out and explore stuff.
Now, who are we talking about?
Jacques Cousteau.
Jacques Cousteau. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I don't know that he had a regular show.
Yeah.
Maybe. I thought you were going to talk about Sea Hunt. Now that,
Yeah.
you remember that?
Yeah, I know the name. I don't know if I ever saw it, but I do.
That was Lloyd Bridges,
Yeah.
whose son was Bo. But Lloyd, they used to. Now that was a scary show to me because Oceans and I just, you know, I'd drown easy. And,
Sink like a stone.
I mean, a guy that puts on equipment and falls backwards out of a boat into the water on purpose, I have no use for. I don't feel like there's sanity involved with his decisions.
Now, going back when you were young, I mean, even when I was young, but probably even more when you were young, like Saturday morning, what was the cartoons that, you can only see cartoons on Saturday morning.
God, the Saturday morning
Like,
cartoons.
did you have
what
something
a
that you-
wonderful ritual that was.
Anything
Well, I
that you
mean, you couldn't beat the Hanna-Barbera,
Right,
all of those guys.
Right.
Huckleberry Hound, what a great guy. He was almost as good as Barney Fife. You know, just a good old boy. And of course, you had your Disney character, your Bugs Bunny and
Right.
Daffy Duck, and
Those are such elaborate productions.
I was watching.
Orchestrated with a full orchestra.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to record all that stuff for real, and they recorded it to the animations. And it was, what a
I was just reading the, now I can think of the term, like you can own something for a certain amount of time, then it becomes public domain.
Right.
Disney's getting ready to come up like in 2 or 3 years of public domain, and like people are already starting to make like just Disney characters doing totally
I
non-Disney.
like the Winnie the Pooh horror movie.
Yeah,
where
that's
Winnie and
like
Piglet
stuff
are-
like that. They're like, we don't even know what we're going to be getting in for in the next couple
my
of
God.
years.
Well, I was going to ask you, that was a question I had for you. Like, public domain is like how many years
I
before?
want to say 75.
I think it
but
is, yeah.
So
in that-
every year there's new ones coming along that
Right.
are public domain. So you're saying that in so many years,
Disney.
because Walt Disney wasn't done in 1 year. It was,
Right.
So they're going to be different ones.
I guess like if Snow White started and whatever,
Yeah,
you know.
back in the-
I guess it's the year they, you know,
Well, some of those
came out.
movies were in the 30s.
And a lot of them were based on old fables.
Oh,
Yeah, they weren't original even then. Hardly any of them were.
Now was Tom and Jerry and the Roadrunner and all that stuff around?
Oh,
back
yeah.
then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's a really cool documentary on the Disney Channel about the creation of Disneyland, the original one, and Walt's big dream to make that world a reality, and all the obstacles at first, but then, like the amount of technology they invented for that was insane. The animatronics, like it's a small world
Right.
after all, and how they're all synchronized and moving, that puppetry. And it was just insane, like what went into creating those robots. Because back then, I mean, it was just cutting edge technology they were all triggered by like magnetic tape and stuff, like mind blowing technology they invented. They were inventing. Same with Star Wars, a similar documentary. It was just so fun watching because these teams of people are coming together, having to invent the technology to realize their vision.
Yeah.
So if the government had hired them, we'd get on Mars.
I know.
Right.
But in Disney, don't the people that work there live? I know they used to live underground.
Well, the Disney World created that.
Yeah,
Once they learned from Disneyland, and they took it all to Florida.
It's like apartments and stuff. They live
There's a
underneath
whole underground world.
Yeah.
Really?
And thousands, because it always frustrated Walt that people would have to walk in costume from one part of the world to where they're supposed to be. So he always wanted them to be able to go underground so they could just pop up where they're supposed to be and not have any suspension of disbelief. Like, look, Goofy's just walking over to his shift or whatever. He hated that whole thing. So then they created a whole underground world for him.
I mean, when I was growing up, I liked Disney a whole bunch. You know, I watched Disneyland and all that stuff, met Wonderful World of Disney, but it never really stuck with me that much. But when I was when I used to work in New Jersey, people were like, I'm going on the Disney cruise this year. I'm like, you're 34 years old. Like people just love Disney like more. It's like they're just obsessed with Disney. And I guess Disney has a lot more stuff out now, but I was like, man, you need to go on the Jam cruise, leave the Disney cruise alone. You and your wife are going on the Disney cruise. Ooh, all right. Have a good time.
That was one thing I liked about seeing this documentary about the creation of Disneyland, in that it really sort of exemplified that it's worthy of such fandom. So much thought and love and stuff went into creating this world. It wasn't just a money grab or some cheap little. I mean, it was like they were dreaming big. They wanted to create something special that would make everybody's dreams a reality or whatever, in such a sweet way, and had to overcome so many obstacles and invent so much technology to bring these things to life that it was.
And I'll bet they don't have a melted body in that whole part.
not one single open heart surgery or melted body, scantily clad woman in sight.
But I saw something on YouTube or Facebook or something a couple of weeks ago. It was a woman, she was 69 years old, been a Disney fan all of her life, had never been to Disneyland. And she went, and there's this video of her just like, she knows that the princess is just a normal woman dressed as a princess, but she's just crying. It's just like the dream. Like you said, it's just, people just have this thing in their heart, I just love Disney. Then they go, they're 69 years old, I'm finally in the Disney World, like this. It's like, the logic leaves the brain and the heart just comes out. It's like just,
That's well said.
Yeah.
I like that.
It is. I saw that same clip on social media. People were batting it back and forth like we do all balls these days, hitting it back and forth. But some people mocking her, and then other people being like, "Come on, like how you're not going to find a sweeter soul."
I know. But it's just those things you hold as a child that are dear to you, and then you finally you're like, it just, you can let them out again or something.
What do you have like that?
Oh my gosh. I don't know, man. I bawl and watch. When I saw it on social media, you might as well put a thing of tissues beside me. I bawl and cry. Oh, this is the dumbest. I was bawling my eyes out a couple nights ago. There's a video of a guy and he must be in a motorcycle or a car, and his dog just running beside him. The dog's just hauling ass, passing every other dog. And I'm sitting there like, run, dog, run! You know, like, that dog is so happy. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I live alone. That nobody's seeing how much in love with I am with this dog. You know, the dog's just like nobody will ever beat me. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Nobody will ever beat you, dog.
Aw.
Oh my gosh. I remember growing up, I was a big fan of the Velvet Underground, the band, and when I was like in my, probably like late 30s, the drummer Mo Tucker did an appearance at a record store in Richmond, and that's what I was writing. I had a monthly article, and my wife got so sick of me hearing I just thought she was the best drummer, like no frill, no anything, just. And the Velvet Underground, the music was just going everywhere. And they would say she said my whole job was to keep a beat so they could come back to the beat, you know, just they could go off wherever they wanted and get all confused and they would all slowly get back to the beat. So I had said that I had made up this thing that we should start a new term, like the Mo of the situation. Her name, they called her Mo Tucker. I said the Mo of the situation is the main, the Mo of the argument is the main thing we're talking about. So you can go off on every subject you want, but we're going to get back to the Mo of the subject. And so I'd written an article like a month before I knew she was coming. It was in the paper that I wrote for her. And I went to, and so she came, and I went to show it to her. I don't know if I actually cried in front of her or not, but my heart was like, gah, 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 gah. I was so in love with her. I was like, oh, I wrote this, I know you. And I was like, I left there. I thought I was like, and like the talk about the fake expressions, I was like, whoo, I thought I was gonna pass out. I was like, oh my God, I was so happy just to meet her. But that was like one of those things, like I'm a grown ass man, you know. I'm just seeing some, drummer, and I'm just like, oh my God, it just.
Did you ever hear what she thought of it?
She read it. She was standing there and she read it, and then
She read it in front of you?
well, it's like I just pointed out the part about her, you know. She's like, oh, that's very sweet, you know. But then she had some her albums of her own, and I think I ordered one of her albums, and she didn't have any more of them in stock, so she sent me the check back, and I was like, no, I'll never cash in this check, I just saved it. But then she sent me a Christmas card, and I was just like, oh,
Well, how did you react to the Christmas card?
Oh my
Didn't you communicate with her? I mean, she's obviously after your body. To me, I can see it. I watch a lot of detective shows, and I know exactly where she was headed.
When I read it,
She wanted a hunk of that.
When I read it, I just laid down and turned into a big hunk of jelly, just rotting flesh. And I was like, oh my God. So she was like, she was in this great band and everything, but then she, when the band broke up, Lou Reed and everybody went off and do their famous things, and she went to work at Walmart. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, she worked at Walmart for like 20 years.
Who did?
The drummer for the
same person?
Yeah.
Well, there's no doubt now. She wanted you to take her away from Walmart, and you didn't even have enough sense to figure it out.
You work in insurance? Ooh.
You have a house.
She was an older lady, though.
Was she hot?
I mean, she was back in the day. Like in the 60s and stuff, but when I met her, she was, let's say she was born in 1940 maybe. So when I was, 35, I wasn't really looking to date somebody that was, 75 or 65 or whatever.
Yeah. I can see that.
Your loss.
I know, probably is. Good old
So,
Mo Tucker.
just a little heads up, the stream didn't work at first. So the first 20 minutes we weren't on the Facebook.
Oh, no.
But it's working now. So welcome again, anybody just joining us.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
you missed some amazing stuff.
Oh, that was profound. I still can't believe you figured that out.
I'm really
great
glad.
clue.
I'm glad we put our clothes back.
Yep, yep, yeah.
Because I was,
welcome to
I
part
wasn't
2.
really that comfortable.
Well, that was
with
part of that
whole-
was the whole charm of
Yeah,
it. Was
but
your
it
discomfort.
was worth watching.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty glad it wasn't out there.
Yeah, it's not preserved. Phew, dodged a bullet there. Well, welcome to the show. We do see you now. If you're in the chat, say hey to us. And what should we talk about next? I guess we're not going to talk about World War III. We don't really want to talk about that.
It was when you were asking about things that like about my youth. One thing I decided, God, when I was like 50, I was going to collect all the Hardy Boy books.
Oh, I remember those.
And we were just talking about Laura Pole. So I was living near her then. And she's like, give me the ones you don't have. Or give me the list of the ones you don't have. You know, you see them at thrift stores and stuff. I think she bought me the last
Aren't there-
7.
There's
There's like 82 or something like that.
All written by the same person?
They have the same name, but I think they said that they're probably not by the same person, you know. So I've got it at my house. I've got a bookcase. Just, you know, people always come over. Hardy Boy books. I guess that's cool, you know.
That was a show.
Oh, yeah.
I vaguely remember being really into that when I was really young.
Remember in the old days, the Mickey Mouse Club had the Hardy Boys. And then later it was Parker Stevenson and like one of the...
You have all of them?
Yeah, I got them all now.
You got all the Hardy Boys?
Yeah.
Now, are those written in such a way that anybody can sort of figure them out? Or are they...
Oh yeah, they're
Is that
like
part of the
they're
charm?
for you know, pre-teens or whatever, you know.
But that's the idea. It's a mystery at the beginning,
Right.
and then you
Right.
can sort of figure it out
Right.
as you go.
But I was reading somewhere
Oh,
because
now I'm seeing some action in the chat.
it's funny. I read somewhere this guy said he was going to read all the Hardy Boys books. So I said, "Oh, this is a cool article. You know, this is what I want to do." So he said he read like the first 5 or 6, and he told his sister, "You know, I don't remember any of these stories." And his sister said, "You never read Hardy Boys. You always read our Nancy Drew books. You never
All right.
you never read Hardy Boys." But he thought he was reading Hardy Boys. It was Nancy Drew he was reading the whole time.
Were they at the same time?
I think they were,
Nancy
yeah,
Drew was
yeah.
that for girls, and
Yeah.
Hardy Boys was that same thing. Kyle's New Jersey friend. Finding all the Hardys was fun, and I'm still waiting on Kyle's next assignment for me.
Laura, if they love the, I hope they love the little zines you sent. I don't know if you were.
We got the gift.
I don't know
Thank
if you
you.
were on to see it.
So she made these?
I don't know if I'm sure she had something to do with them. I'm sure the Ernie Kovac one, but she has like they're part of the assignment for the, you know, the whole zine collection. But the library now has like zines you can go in and
What does
buy.
TFPZ stand for?
The Trenton Public, was it
TFPZ.
Laura, what is that? Trenton Public Library? So Trenton Public.
Trenton Free Public.
Yeah,
Zine.
yeah.
Zine.
Gosh, got our fact checker over here.
So these are
Those from
old,
what?
or are they?
No, they're
are
new.
They're new.
Mhm.
So where do they distribute these?
At the library.
Oh, that's the only place you can get them.
Well, you know, I guess if you write to her, she'll send
Johnny
them out
Appleseed
to you.
them around.
Yeah.
People share them.
But she went to Atlantic City last year and had like what do you do if you're the leader of it? Not hosted, but led a zine conference
Moderate.
and stuff. Yeah, zine conference. She used to do when I was doing Bold Print. She was doing a zine too. Malcontent was the name of her zine. Really good.
Can you bring some copies of Bold Print?
Yeah.
I'd
got-
love to see one of those.
You got any
again.
white gloves you can wear out of regular?
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember when I was in high school, I wrote this story. I might have mentioned this before too. Every night I would write a story, and I would add to the story and pass it around school. And then one day I couldn't get it back, and I was like, "Where is it? I got to take it home." They said, "Well, the teachers have it in the lounge." I was like, "Oh no!" I was like, "No, this can't be true," you know. Oh,
Sure, we enjoyed it.
Wait, so how'd that work?
I had like
It was handwritten?
I had a notebook, yeah, and every night I'd go home and just like write like 5, however many pages, you know, and then I would take it and I would, people would like wait for it. It was like, it was like the Hardy Boys or something. The next episode was out, and I would give it out. And then at the end of the school that day, I was like, where's my bag? Where's my book, my notebook? And they're like, oh, and one of the teachers took it. It's in the teacher's lounge now. And I remember just like, no.
Do you remember how you got it back?
Well, the next morning, somebody gave it back to me. But I don't know.
I didn't take it, did I?
I don't know, but I was just like, oh my God, which one of these teachers is reading this stuff?
I
Was it
wouldn't.
scandalous?
I wouldn't have given it back.
It wasn't scandalous, but it was like, I didn't. It was making fun of. I mean, it probably had some stuff making fun of teachers and stuff in there, and curse words and.
Well, we had a group called Stall 2 that was doing the same thing to other teachers.
Right.
Yeah, that was our name. We were pretty famous back in that era. I think we went through 4 different principals. I remember they called me, and we used to put out a little newsletter too, or anything we wanted to do. If we'd see something really stupid, we'd write a response and put it in everybody's box.
No, right.
Yeah. But yeah, Stall 2 was.
Do you have any of those old transmissions on file?
I don't know what happened to them, but they were classics. I mean, there were some people that, and we tried.
And who was in Stall 2?
Stall 2 mainly was Jay Higgs and Ned Bonfoy and Gene Blackburn and myself.
Who was the typer for the transmissions into the inbox? Was that
me?
Ned?
I did a lot of it. I went ahead and typed them up a lot and did them. Stall 2 was the second stall in the faculty bathroom.
Oh, wow.
And it was back in that day, the second floor was the smoking lounge. The first floor was non-smoking. So I was one of the only non-smokers that would go in there. And a place would be.
Because the conversation was better.
Oh, yeah. It was much more interesting. It was very few people that would fight that didn't smoke, but we had Miss Palmer, and Gene didn't smoke, but he was but we were also lazy. It was on our floor and it was ours. And, but the other 3 of them smoked, and we were up to no good. In a lighthearted, just like we weren't trying to hurt anybody, but we were trying to make fun of everybody.
And whatever happened to Gene Blackmore? Is he still around?
Oh yeah.
I remember one time a friend of mine wanted to go. His parents took us to. We both lived here in Stanton. We went to Waynesboro. We would go record shopping in Waynesboro. And we walked around, and then I said, all right, you need to call your mom, come pick us up. She goes, well, she never said she'd pick us up. I was like, well, how are we getting home then? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, dude, you didn't tell me this part of the story, that we weren't going to get home. And somehow he had Gene Blackmore's phone number and called him. And he came out there and picked us up. And was like, wish y'all hadn't done this, but I know you needed to get back. I was like, I was just sitting in the back, like all embarrassed. My friends like trying to talk shit, like, oh, I knew you'd come pick us up. I was like, oh my God, it's the most embarrassing thing. Having to call a teacher to come pick us up.
Gene Blackmore taught me my first song on guitar ever.
Oh, wow.
Eleanor Rigby.
Oh, wow.
I got a new guitar, and Gene was the first musician I ran into after getting it. He
wonderful.
Taught me Eleanor Rigby.
He was a wonderful person to have a room next to.
Yeah, they shared a wall.
Yeah.
And y'all were like the odd couple or something. Y'all would play off each other in so many
I'll
ways.
tell you a story.
All right.
Here's a Gene Blackmore story. I'm teaching one day, and when I'm writing on my wall, his blackboard is right through the wall.
Right.
So if he's writing and I'm writing, you can hear the.
Right.
So I'm up there talking, and I got a diagram up there, and I'm pointing at it, and I hear this screeching, and it had never really screeched before, and it just made this horrible, you know, the sound of chalk on a blackboard, but it kept doing it, and and it really started to bother me, and it was hurting my ears, and I'm talking to the kids, and I'm trying to give a lesson. I said, I can't stand that. That's just driving me crazy. So finally, he did one real long one. And I said, I've had it. And I was pissed. And I just slammed my door open, and I marched over there, and I marched in, and it didn't take me long to get in there, and I slammed that door open, and I walked in, and I started to say something. While I had been walking from the blackboard to around that room, Mr. Blackmer had looked at his class and said, this is the sound of the mating, this is the mating call of the lonely chemistry teacher. And I walked in, and I have never seen anything like it. When I walked in, and I was just really irritated, and those kids saw me walk in and they heard that sound and saw me walk in like that. You couldn't have recreated it. It was the funniest thing. I remember 3 or 4 your friends laying on the floor laughing. They couldn't even get up. I thought we were at to call a hospital or something. They were just, I mean, every kid in that room was belly laughing. Some kids had never laughed before. And it was the funniest thing any of them had ever seen.
Oh,
and I was speechless. I mean, where am I going with it?
No. When did you find out that he had told him that?
He told me while
later.
they were laughing.
Okay.
He was explaining to me why they were laughing, but he was also saying, gotcha. That's a good example of his sense of humor, but his timing on that was impeccable.
That's a great story.
Oh, God,
The
that's
mating
funny.
call of the lonely chemistry teacher.
Well, see, well, the thing is, it's funny because, like, as a student, I just thought you all just like you never even talked to each other. You just, you know, like you were just like, you know, Pac-Man. You just all went your separate way. Nobody ever talked to each
That
other.
was somewhat true with a lot of situations, which was unfortunate, but, you know, it's not your fault, but you're in a classroom and the bell rings and you have to be somewhere.
Right.
So there wasn't a whole lot of time for, you know, the copy room when you're making up the tests. I'd get to see some people. But other than that, the English department's on the other block, so I wouldn't even see them.
Right.
Much less the band. You know, I could never see any of them.
Right.
Or phys ed. So, yeah, there was that quality, but we had our little group.
Now, when you're teaching, do you know other teachers, or is that you don't really get to meet that many teachers?
I know all of them in my department, and depending on, like, I also work in general education, so I know teachers in other departments, but if I didn't do that, it's pretty insular. Like, I would know the other psych teachers, but...
So are any of them your so-called friends?
Oh, yeah. One of them's one of my closest friends.
Oh, that's cool.
Hey, Deucey, good to see you.
Hi, Karen.
She laughed at that story. She's belly laughing in the chat there.
Oh, good for her.
Now, did y'all ever, like, after school, like, say we're going to have, like, a cookout or sit around and eat sandwiches and have a couple of drinks?
Every occasionally for something like a holiday or something, like on a Friday, we'd meet at somebody's house and have a few drinks. And, you know, some people did that more than others. And some were, you know, married and wanted to go home to their families. And there were still some out there that were still looking around and partying.
Now, what was Mr. Bonfoy like? I liked him as a teacher.
Well, he just was one of the funniest guys. And he and I, like politically, we were, he was a lot more conservative,
Who's that?
military, Mr. Bonfoy.
Mm-hmm.
But
What a great guy.
But he and I we never got a crossword. We just loved each other's mind and humor. He was great.
Karen, Nathan, did you have your dad as a teacher in school at any point? Sadly knows the 1 year that there were 2 chemistry teachers was the year I was a junior, and when I took chemistry, the year I took chemistry was the only year that there were 2 chemistry teachers there, and I think they brought that person in just so Dad and I wouldn't be in the same room together. I wouldn't put it past them.
Now, a lot of times Mr. Blackburn would teach a chemistry class.
Oh, he did?
Every once when we had that situation
When you
where
had too
we
many
needed,
students, or
when we had too many chemistry students.
Now, didn't you tell us that your teacher was a wannabe NFL star or former NFL star?
yeah, he was a very
Extra point kicker.
Yeah, he was not in a good place because was pursuing his dream, and then he got injured, and then he had to teach. So he was very sort of still in a very bitter phase of all that. He did not want to be there. He did not want to be there.
Garo Yepremian from the Dolphins, was that your?
That's him.
I went from an all season to teaching high school chemistry. What the hell?
He didn't stick around. And as soon as I was done with chemistry, he was done with chemistry too.
He wasn't very
I don't think I had anything to do with
He
that.
wasn't. I met him when I shook his hand. He said his name. I can't even remember his name, but he said, "I'm a chemist." I'm saying, "Whoa!"
And you said,
He's a chemist.
and you said, "Fuck him."
I'm any Walt Disney character you want me to be.
I respond to the mating call of the lowly chemistry teacher.
You're not gonna let me forget that line. But yeah, that was unfortunate.
How do you think y'all would have done together? Could you have looked at him with a?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't have tried to use my influence at all. It would have been 2 separate things. Father and teacher would be 2 different.
I think we would have done good, even though I was very rebellious and always looking for trouble. I also always wanted Dad's respect or whatever. I don't think I would have. I think I would have been on my best behavior on some level.
Now, would you
trying to impress you?
Now, would you have tried harder to get good grades, or?
Yeah, harder than I did with the other dude. That's for sure. Last thing I want to do is be getting a C in his class. I would have aced your class. No matter how hard you made it on me, I would have risen to that challenge.
I wouldn't have made it hard on
I'm
you.
sure you wouldn't have.
I would have made it hard.
But you wouldn't want to show me any special.
No.
He would apologize for the rest of you students. I'm sorry, this 1 year is gonna be extra hard, but my son's in this class. I gotta make it extra hard for everybody.
I wonder how that would have inspired if you would have felt the same way about impressing me in terms of how amazing of a teacher you are.
I don't think it would have changed my way of doing things.
You're pretty set.
I
You had your thing.
I had my things, and I would think that you would have approved them.
Right.
Because I was a little off the wall.
Yep.
No, do you think it would have made things easier if the whole year in class he was known as Percy Boyd?
Yeah, I wouldn't have recognized him.
So like it's like nobody else knew you were father and son.
Yeah.
Well, there's Percy Boyd and Mr. Moore. That's I don't know, nothing weird about that.
I'd be down in lounge saying, that guy looks exactly like my son. I just can't believe it. He's a little smarter.
That's weird.
He seems to try harder than my son usually does.
You got to admit that your classroom being a chemistry teacher is one of the coolest teachers to be in terms of the classroom you get.
Oh, no
You
doubt.
had a special classroom with Bunsen burners and sinks at every desk, like
That's what-
special. They had to build that
Yeah.
thing special.
And not to mention the chemicals. Oh my
Oh,
God!
you had a whole
They gave
walk-in
me
closet.
a whole room full of toys.
Right.
I did, but the thing, but I just,
beakers and Bunsen burners.
I just remember so much stuff happened in your class. I mean, nothing to do with you, and you had.
Oh, you had him.
Yeah,
Right.
and nothing you could have controlled. But I remember just evil things that were done there. One time, what was the kid's name? I know his name now. I can't think of it. Roger. Roger. He was in the class before us. He left his book in there, like it was just laying on the counter, you know. So I remember Mike Anderson just turned on one of the faucets and just got his book wet. So when the book just swelled up, so it was like all wrinkly, like that big, and he couldn't
That's
close
not
it.
nice.
And so I remember Roger for the rest of the year walked around with this big chemistry book that was all wavy and swollen.
You still get a kick out of that.
That's sad.
That is sad.
But like no other classroom could
Seeing
you.
him delight in it.
But so
so much is
no
a
other
little-
classroom could you put somebody's book underwater.
It's true, you just didn't have that option. Luckily, you didn't Bunsen burner it.
I remember that. I remember Roger.
Well,
like,
you know, you couldn't. I'm up in the front, and I've got this long table in front of me, but everybody had those big long tables
Oh,
in front of
yeah.
them. Nobody else. I mean, weird stuff could happen, and I didn't know.
Weird stuff did happen.
I know. The worst one and the most embarrassing was a guy told me one night at downtown. We were drinking together after he was older, obviously, and he told me that he got a blowjob in there.
Oh my god!
damn.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
While you were teaching?
I told you not to
Yeah,
tell that
'cause you
story.
can't- Oh, right.
You told me not to tell her name.
Yeah, because all the students had islands there.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how, and he was in the back of the room,
Mm-hmm.
and he
Wow.
said, "It wasn't your fault. You couldn't see what was going on."
Wow.
We were discreet.
Kids
Well,
those days.
whoa, well, you were discreet. That's just horrible to even think about. That makes me sick.
And here I am laughing about an old folded up notebook.
Yeah, I thought you were going to tell that story.
What was he like as a teacher?
I mean, very entertaining. Very. It was like he was unlike any other teacher. Really, he would just come out and just. It was not just factual. Like he didn't just stand there. He would wander around and he would he would just talk and tell stories, and he tried to tie everything into I think he knew that chemistry wasn't everybody's choice of the one thing they wanted to learn, so he would just tie it into other weird things, and try to make it tie into your life and understandable, so you would realize there was a reason to, know what he was talking about. But some days, I don't think he ever talked about chemistry at all. He would just go on about something. You were just fascinated. He would just talk about other stuff. He would talk about I remember one time he talked about Vietnam and stuff. We were all just sitting there like, the hell is he talking about? But just for a day, he just talked about Vietnam and the people that didn't want to go and different stuff. And, the bell rings. We're all like, man, that was a break, from the normal things.
Well, we had those life days. That's where.
Do you remember Life Days? Did y'all ever do those?
I don't remember that.
Well, I didn't have them all the time, and I didn't have them with every class.
Sometimes it would be like anybody, you could write a question and put it into a hat, and then he would pull them out, and it was anonymous, so you could,
Oh,
it could
wow.
be anything. Sort
In
of.
those days, because if you think about it, there wasn't much place for people to talk for kids.
There's no internet.
Right.
Yeah, and they got their reality from either the news or their parents, or
Right.
so I was basically bringing them new news
Right.
from a
Right.
different source.
Well, I think I told this before too. One time he came up like on a Tuesday. He said, why don't you teach class on Tuesday? And I thought he was kidding around. I was like, what? And he's like, you can get up in front of I want you to lead the class on Tuesday. And I went home and brain stormed. I mean, I've never been so nervous in my entire life.
And that's why I did it.
Like getting up there trying to talk about stuff and asking questions and stuff. Like no other teacher would have ever done that, you know.
I enjoyed that.
Why do you think there weren't more teachers like you, like, as opposed to focusing on because I agree. Like I saw the impact you had and the way kids responded to you and everything, but I was beyond like what made you special or whatever. Why aren't more teachers like that?
I think it's just a normal thing not to want to lose your job, and you want to follow the rules. And one of the things I
It's an
learned,
outlaw,
yeah,
a little bit of an outlaw spirit, kind of.
yeah, you need to have that. Well, what I had was a little knowledge that I could do something else, that I didn't need to. I saw a lot of teachers after about 10 years behave and feel like that they couldn't get out of it. This is what they had bought into, this is what they did, and they didn't pick up and leave when it got hard for them, which was, you know, that they were right a lot of times, but sometimes they probably needed to do something else. And when I was young, I taught for 3 years, and then I quit at the end of the year. I just said, this is getting old, and I was really young. So I said, I told Mr. Frank I just couldn't do it anymore, or I'd end up like everybody else. And that's when I went to Las Vegas and did all that. And I got fired from my construction job because I didn't do very good at that either. But I went back to teaching, but when I walked in, I had something in me that was different than all the others, and that is, I knew I didn't need this. I knew I could do something else if I wanted to. And so that gave me that little power, that little extra kick to go ahead and just be. But, you know, I tried to stay within the rules. I didn't just crazily do what I wanted to do. I tried to play the game with them so that I wouldn't get in too much trouble, because I did like what I was doing. And the more I did it, the more I liked it and realized I really do want to keep this job. So I was trying to play it both ends to be, I wanted to be the teacher I never had, but I also wanted to keep my job.
Well, I mean, I didn't think about it when you were my teacher. I didn't think about it, but now that I look back on it, and I thought about this since hooking up with you again, the thing that you taught basically was to have an interest. I don't care what your interest is, have an open mind. Like, I think some teachers just like, I'm going to teach you this, I'm just going to drill it into you. Instead of like saying, become interested in this, or they just wanted you to learn their thing. He was more like, look, you might not love chemistry, but if you learn this, and you learn this, and you learn this, chemistry will become interesting to you too. If you can open your interests up and find loves and find interests, you don't know what you're going to become interested in, you know. Chemistry might down the road become an interest to you, or you'll realize that the world all ties together. If you love, you know, TV shows and reading, eating, you can love chemistry too. It was more like a way to tie the whole world together instead of just like, I'm going to teach you how to do, you know, geometry, you know, like, oh my God, you know. He was more like, just love to learn. I mean, that's the
Well, part of it is the fact that after a while, because I hated chemistry when I was in high school, and I didn't even take the second level my senior year. I just quit because I'd already gotten accepted to college, and it was baseball season. I just midterm. I wasn't getting anything out of it. So I was that guy that didn't like chemistry. And then I was assigned, but it took me a couple of years to realize what a beautiful subject it was to teach. The toys and all the little things you could do with them. Because, yeah, you could actually blow shit up. And that's the miracle, that I didn't
Kill anybody.
that I didn't, that there wasn't a skeleton melted in my yard, in my room.
Right, right.
So yeah, I was lucky in a lot of ways.
Corey Lynn, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Well, the thing is, there wasn't a skeleton in the yard, but there was an eel hammered to a tree out by the river.
They didn't know. They didn't know about that. I don't tell all those stories.
Finally, I get my skeleton that I've always wanted.
So I guess you had like a book each year where you would order your chemicals or whatever. The school would give you a budget. Was there a
Yep.
budget that you have so much you could
Yeah,
spend?
yeah, 500.
And you had to sit
for the
down and
chemical.
decide which stuff you wanted, or
Right.
was it like
Oh yeah,
written out for
I
you?
could order anything within the, I didn't have to explain.
So is there like there back then? I know it's way different now, in some ways and not good ways. But back then, did you decide your lesson plan? Was there anything from the state like you had to cover this?
Well,
this,
it got
and that?
worse and worse.
How'd that work?
At the end, we got the SOL system came in.
Yeah, we don't even want to talk about that.
And
do we?
that changed a lot of things, and all for the worst.
All for the worst.
All for the worst.
Teaching to the test.
Yeah, and
Well, what was it like before that?
well, it was just more wide open. But you had standards. You had a book that had, what your goals are, what you were supposed to.
So you had to teach a textbook.
I didn't have. I had. The state put out guidelines, standards. They put out their standards of learning, and every class had things. Students shall be able to balance the equation.
Right.
They would tell you what they wanted.
Now, do you think most states were the same, or each state was different?
I think every state was a little bit different, but a lot of it was the same, especially with chemistry. Chemistry didn't change a whole lot from year to year because it was pretty standard what they were teaching. But
So, like, when I'm sorry to interrupt. So, when the book came, so did you review it and say, all right, this is what I have to do, and then you'd work your way around it, or how did you?
I didn't have to review it after a while. I knew what was in there, but it also followed the textbook. Whatever textbook you adopted
Right.
was, if you just taught the textbook, you'd have to cover all those things. But
No, each year would you read, or if say there's a new textbook, would you read through it to see what was going on, or you figured you knew what was?
I would flip through it. I don't know about reading, but every 6 or 8 years you'd adopt a new textbook,
Right.
and I did that 2 or 3 times. The only nice thing is you can go to my house right now and see all kinds of old teachers' texts because they'd send you a free copy, and they didn't want it back. It wasn't like I was stealing, but I've got a lot of brand new textbooks that
Do kids these days even have textbooks?
I really don't know. Some do and some don't. But there are some classes now that don't. I don't know about chemistry.
It's all on tablets or online. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
the idea of a backpack full of your books is such a staple of my youth, and
There's Jamie, you have books, or do they?
But there's ebooks as well. Electronic versions.
So you can just get that. If you
Tracy
want.
Doyle's in here. Steve was my chemistry teacher back in '85.
85.
Yeah, we're
Hey, Tracy. Good man.
yeah. We probably don't even want to talk about how the changes they made just sort of gutted your.
Well, it's harder to be like me. But that's true in a lot of places, in a lot of areas now. There's more standardization across the board. But yeah, but even then I had to play the game a little bit.
So I've never heard this story. So you taught at Lehigh for 3 years, then you went to Vegas to to build casinos, or what did you do?
Yeah, actually it was John Lewis. I was teaching junior high earth science.
Wow.
See, that's why I left, because Ninth graders aren't that much fun to teach. I hate to tell them if you're.
Well, I remember 'cause the first time you were a substitute teacher one time, and I think I was in 8th grade. It might have been earth science.
Yeah, I did some subbing, but that was
I did some subbing.
long.
You did?
Yeah, he
Wow.
subbed for me,
Mr. Nathan.
Mr. Nathan.
So after 3 years, you said, "I'm going to go build a new clam digger motel out in Vegas."
I drove to Las Vegas
You
by
drove, right.
myself and stayed out there for 3 months. And I thought that I knew more about who was going to win a football game or about an athletic event than the odds makers. I
Oh, so
thought
you
I
went
could
out to
beat
Gamble.
you went out to
Gambler.
gamble. You didn't go out to become a construction worker.
No.
But you suddenly realized you needed more money, so construction was an easy way to make it,
I
or a
wasn't-
hard way to make it.
I wasn't a construction worker.
Oh.
That's when I came back and I was broke. And
I never heard
that was
that
more.
story.
That was a summer job.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you got fired?
Well, we mutually agreed that I was costing them a lot of money. I mean, one day, all I did was lean it up against the wall, but there was evidently something sticking out, and I broke a picture window. They had just got it, and they'd said they were going to get it. They were going to break for lunch, and then I broke it before we could put it in. Oh, I still hate that. But and it was a friend of mine who hired me, and so it was a mutual agreement that I probably wasn't meant to be doing that.
I had a friend that worked construction for like 5 years, and he said all he ever remembers was everybody being drunk and having diarrhea, waiting in line to use that porta potty.
Oh my God!
Wait, what? In construction?
Yeah, this guy. I mean, this was like in Richmond, and he said everybody that worked there was like, they would just drink every night, come to work hungover, and he said you'd work for like an hour, half an hour, and then everybody they had like diarrhea, they had like the beer shits, and he would be like, you'd see somebody go to the bathroom, and you'd like wait until you turn, and you'd see somebody else run down the ladder, you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna crap my pants, and they don't hurry up and get out of there. He said it was like the first 2 hours was just dudes wanting to use the porta potty.
That's rough life. Yeah.
Karen says, I recently found out the university that I graduated from no longer has a bookstore.
Wow.
Yeah, things are changing.
Wow.
What university is that?
I was so curious when with Lex and Corey's kids, and I feel like I've never been satisfied on this front. I wanted to see their textbooks just out of curiosity, like how is American history being taught? What books are they? Is it still Beowulf? And
Right.
like what do they have to read? And I still don't know. I don't know if that just never happened,
Right.
or if they don't have textbooks anymore.
Well, that's so weird. My youngest nephew, who's like 20, I think 22 now, so he graduated high school like 4 or 5 years ago. He said he would go to class in his pajamas with a blanket wrapped around him, drinking Starbucks coffee. I was like, man, if you had showed up in class like that, you'd have been out the door so quick. He said, no, as long as you behave. And I was like, if you had a cup of coffee sitting there in class, hey teacher, I mean, you'd have been like. I mean,
Wouldn't
it's
it
just so different now.
So, and it seems like that I don't know what's chicken or the egg or whatever, but I just don't understand how our education system is failing on the level that it is. Like the amount of people that can't read in America is astounding.
Right.
It's like how does that happen? I can't even fathom that anybody. Not only didn't learn how to read, but the teachers weren't even aware that they didn't learn it or something. Like, how are people coming out of school not being able to read? How did they get through school not being able to read? And what is really going on?
They must really be smart.
They must be geniuses.
It's such a different.
It's such a
different world. That we have a person that comes in where I work. They come in to pay their insurance bill every month, and they come in. It's a lady in her pajamas every month. I'm like, where did the society go where you don't think you have to put clothes on to go pay a bill anymore? You just sit up like, oh, God, I got to pay my insurance bill. I mean, just get in the car. Oh, I didn't get dressed. That's all right. She shows up. I'm like, come on back to my office. We'll take this payment. I'm always like, what happened to like, just knowing you got to put a shirt and a pair of pants on to go out and do something.
Compared to like Granddad's generation, where
Yeah, you put a
everybody
suit
was
on,
suited
yeah.
up.
But
Everybody.
that's like going to school. He said, yeah, you'd put on nice pajamas and
Nice. Hey, they're nice. At least you said that.
But he said you have a blanket around him and just comfortable drinking Starbucks. I was like, oh my God. You need to be whipped. The teacher needs to just grab your head and smash it into the desk like 4 or 5 times and go, don't you ever bring your ass back in here without clothes on again. If you're bringing coffee, bring me one. I mean, you would have.
Bring everybody.
You would have never even gotten into the classroom. I don't think. If you had walked in with a cup of coffee, I don't even know. You couldn't have anything back then.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know what you could have though is a cigarette in the smoking section for kids.
Oh yeah.
When I was in school.
Yeah, go out on the ground.
There was a smoking section for the kids.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, out there on the front. Yeah.
Yeah. Front of
Because the cigarettes weren't dangerous back then.
Right. They were good for you.
Yeah.
A sign of maturity.
Well, the nicotine got your brain working, so you could go back and learn.
Right. I mean, we're solving equations here. We're right in the future.
I was watching something where a guy said one of the most powerful drug experiences he ever had. He stopped drinking coffee for like 6 months, and then he drank coffee again. He said just when that caffeine hit him, he said it was like his body just went into like just like he couldn't believe how your body reacts like the first time you have caffeine in a long time.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get used to it, and for us, it's just sort of like a drip or whatever.
Right.
You don't understand how powerful it is, and then you take a break from it for a while, and you're like, "Oh, I've been doing a drug every day."
Well, it's like friends used to like, "What are you doing?" Like it's 11 o'clock. I'm just sitting here drinking like a Coke. And I'm getting ready to go to bed. You can drink it would have no effect on me at all. I could drink a soda and just go right to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if you get off of it, like any drug, you get off of it, and then it's like, it's just.
Nicotine's definitely like that. Where when you're doing it all the time, it's just sort of like maintaining a certain thing. But then you take a break from it for a little while, and then take like one puff, and you're like, "Whoa, gosh, that is so powerful."
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like that when you do it all the time.
Does a pipe have a nicotine rush to it, or that not really so much?
I don't know that it does. I don't feel like I've ever smoked the pipe for the nicotine, but I don't know that for sure. But I see it just more of a social. It's something to do, but I'm obviously getting something out of it. But
It's a good-looking pipe right there. It's a whole ritual with the pipe too.
it's definitely a ritual.
It's fun to hold and look at.
Yeah.
Josepha, our teachers smoked with the students. Smoker's Alley. Yeah, what was the section behind Lee called? I feel like it had a name. Smoker's Alley sounds about right.
Yeah.
This is the whole thing.
I want to know what the back desk section was called where you got blowjobs.
This is another kind of alley.
Students would come in and give your dad like $20. I'm going to the back section today. Go on back there. Go ahead.
That was horrible.
It's horrible.
I mean, just to think that I'm up there lecturing and that was happening. That's sad.
What's disrespectful?
Well, it's way more. It's more than that.
That ever happened during any of your shows? You felt disrespected?
No. I would feel like
He has 3 or 4 songs about it. That's what it's about time for. Time to do a song.
Oh my goodness.
They used to do that song with my shirt, so I know what I'm talking about. So when I show up next
I
time.
don't even know what. Usually, I'm pretty good at picking a song that applies to what we've been talking about, but I don't know if I got anything.
You don't have any good blowjob songs?
I wrote a song when I was student teaching, but I can't remember it now. But I heard it come up on a playlist the other day.
Stall number 2. No, those problems.
What do you think?
If you get stuck, I got one.
What's that?
Well, somebody was saying they wanted to hear Plastic Pony, and I can't remember how it went.
Who said that?
It was on a chat or something. You read it all last week. You read, but I used to, when you used to request something, I would always say Plastic Pony, but right now, or that night, I couldn't remember how it goes, so I don't think you've heard it, have you?
Mm-mm.
Say, let me on that plastic pony, stop the carousel, but it just keeps on spinning. I said, let me get used to something, get to know it well, but it all just keeps on beginning. I can't sit and watch forever. I can't sit idle by. And I don't know how to hop on, I don't know how to jump in. I've given them both a try. But I talked to my mom and pa, I talked to all my friends, and I talked in between all the lines. I talked to the pastor, and I talked to the salesman, and I talked to the lady with the deep blue mind. And they all told me the same thing. They all said, seek and ye shall find. Oh, but I am looking for a place, I'm not looking for a sign. Hold your horses, I want to read and ride and squeeze something into me forever. Be it woman, be it work, be it words, or be it child, I just hope it comes to me to be together. Because I might just be making myself lonely. I know that happens sometimes, but as far as I can see, there ain't nothing close to me, just the feeling that none of it's mine.
Woohoo! Yeah, good lines.
That's
Hey,
an
Percy, you
oldie,
came to sing
old
here?
song.
Oldie Percy.
Percy liked, you like the clapping.
So you don't know what the song My Shirt is?
Oh, I know what that is, yeah.
Is that a crowd favorite?
I sang it last night. I feel like I've done it on the show, haven't I? When a little boy thinks he's Superman. You heard that one?
I don't think
I don't
so.
want to do the whole thing right now. That it might jog at least in your
Have you heard that
memory.
one? No, I don't. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Fuck 'em.
Here, let me play you a new one.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
My
any
shirt.
song that you play on the big guitar, you can play on that little one too? Or you have to...
Definitely different. You could.
What is this called again?
Ukulele. Baritone ukulele.
And that one's called electric?
Yeah.
That's Percy.
That's Percy.
That's Percy
Oh,
Boyd
yeah.
Electric.
Here's one I don't think you've heard yet, Dad. How many days have I waved off the miracle to claim I have empirical proof that we are blind? How many ways do I hide from beauty as if it's my duty to stay left behind? rides in on each breath with wings from above, taps my shoulder, gives my sleeve a tug. Even in the darkest corner there's enough light to remind me of love. How many times have I laid awake wondering when my pirate plundering might come for me? How many crimes have I committed sleeping, dreaming there's no keeping secrets from the sea? Rides in on each breath with wings from above, taps my shoulder, gives my sleeve a tug. Even in the darkest corner there's enough light to remind me of love. For the last little while, I've been gathering up my broken mirror, taping it back together so I can look me in the eye, to tell me that I love me and believe me, 'cause it's true. There's too much to do, a new day is nigh. Rides in on each breath with wings from above, taps my shoulder, gives my sleeve a tug. Even in the darkest corner there's enough light to remind me of love. Light to remind me of love.
Nice.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that.
And with that, we're at the hour-and-a-half mark.
Are we really?
Yeah. How about that?
That's great. Well, I have had a hell of a day compared to my normal day, which is to watch Jeopardy at 12:30 and 7:30.
Is it the same one or different
That's what I was
ones?
looking at.
No, they have daytime Jeopardy.
Oh, wow.
I think it's back in November. They even have Malik on one of them and the guy on the other.
Wow.
But yeah, it's two different shows.
But they don't really have a daytime Jeopardy, right?
12:30,
Really?
Channel 3.
Holy moly.
Channel 3, our Harrisonburg, they do the 7:30 one too. And oh yeah.
Now, this is a question I want to ask you. I mean, I feel sort of,
Thank you. Thank you all out there.
I feel weird asking this question since Catherine's sitting right here. But the Nick Cave book I just read, it's like every song he writes now, somehow he can tie it to his wife. There's some little part of every song that has something to do with his wife. Do you feel that way at all?
That he writes now?
Yeah.
He doesn't even know the guy's wife.
Yeah, I can safely say
Stupid
not a
ass
single
question.
thing I've
That's the
written
dumbest
ever
thing I've
has
ever
anything to do with Nick
You
Cave's
can't do any
wife.
better than that. Good Lord.
It's just that he said he can't do anything creative has some little spark of his wife or some bit of his wife in it somehow.
That makes perfect sense. Sure.
You can say no.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure that's true.
I go between Natalie Wood and Audrey Hepburn myself. If you didn't ask me. Which I do believe
poor
are the
Natalie
same person,
Wood.
by the way. What's that?
Poor Natalie Wood. Now, do you think
Just a puddle.
what's his face had anything to do with Natalie Wood's death?
Well, of course he did.
You think he did?
Well, of course he did. He was right there. He's on the boat. I mean,
Now,
I
what's his-
didn't.
what's
I'm
his-
not saying he did anything wrong.
What's
but
his name?
He had something. Robert Wagner.
Robert Wagner.
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Now, how about the
Heart to heart.
how about the
Am I right?
captain of the ship? Was he at fault at all?
I did not do that as a detective thing. I was too saddened by her demise that I didn't want to.
No, I can't remember. When was that? In the 70s or later than that?
It
Or?
was later than that, probably 80s, I'd say. I don't do years very well.
So who'd you say, Natalie Wood and Goldie Hawn? Who'd you say?
Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn, okay.
Although Goldie was a sweetheart. Goldie and I got along very well together.
Did you watch her on Laugh-In?
Of course I did.
Was
If
Laugh-In
you had those VCRs where you could come back and watch them over and over, I'd watch her do that little dance at the beginning of the show probably 1,000 times if I had a chance.
No, I can see you being a big fan of Laugh-In when it was.
Oh, I loved laughing. Yeah.
How about the Smothers Brothers?
They were quick. Loved the Smothers Brothers. Saw them
See,
the other
they were
night.
willing to be controversial.
Oh, yeah.
I saw them the other night. Ed Sullivan introduced them. Hell, when you're Googling, you're passing
Right.
through, and they were good. They had a good act.
I love that tension of those old classics, like the controversy of the Smothers Brothers, because there was all this like really palpable. Do we say something? Like like they had those meetings, like whether it was the war or civil rights
Right.
or any of these things that were going on, and it was like to cross the mainstream narrative to be on the side of progressive issues or whatever. Like was such a
Yeah.
big deal, and like oh, did you hear what they did or what they said? And it was like so many brave people like willing to put themselves on the line, and I don't know, that tension was always so palpable back in the vintage days.
Yeah, somehow without meaning to, I've collected like 8 Smothers Brothers albums. Like you said, there's no dirty language, there's no, sexual stuff. It's always just right on the edge of being acceptable, just because their ideas were just so against the norm or pressing, against the norm, really.
See, I
Which
don't
sort of
remember
comes
them
back to
being
what
like
kind of
that.
teacher he was, or whatever, that pressing against the norm, and why that's such a rare personality,
Yeah.
or whatever. But it makes sense on a certain level. But
Maybe pressing against the norm wasn't in the right way, but they were questioning why are things the way they are.
right,
That's a
Definitely.
better way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah.
which is not.
They did a lot of that on Laugh-In.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a whole lot of what they were doing, was questioning the norms, the whole concept of skit humor and television shows.
It seems to not be the default human nature to question, to push back against what you've been told or taught. It
Well,
seems to
there
be
are always people doing it.
There's all right, but,
But they're not- they're
that's
not
our
in the-
people. Those are our people.
They're not in the majority.
They're not in the majority. The default human nature is to
Get by.
yeah.
Well, especially now with the cancel culture and stuff, would people like Smothers Brothers and stuff still be able to do what they were doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think the Smother Brothers would have been fine, but it's awful easy to insult people.
Right.
I was also watching Don Rickles the other night.
Oh my God.
I'm not sure he could make it. He had.
Yeah, when your whole identity is offending people.
Yeah, that's your job.
What would you do
Yeah.
in this climate?
But supposedly wasn't he like a really sweet, nice guy, like
Oh,
totally in
sure,
love with his wife, like just totally dedicated to his wife and just loved her to death, and then he just come out like he just. I think
Every insult he hurled was in some ways
Yeah.
a little attached to his wife.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of my wife when I wrote this insult about the Jewish people.
He would say anything.
Well, I think that was his saving grace, that he was known for that. So you would, the people that he was insulting, could sort of forgive him for
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Like,
Not only that, it was like an honor to be
Yeah,
insulted by
yeah.
him. It's like, oh my God, do me next, do me next, please.
oh my God. Oh yeah, but how did he even get? Because he was like the only person like that one. He would just come out and insult and just tear people apart.
He was the best.
At the same time, it was the roast was a comedy institution. It was sort of it was an aspect of the comedy tradition, the insults
Right.
and the when you roasted somebody. Well, those Dean Martin hosted. I mean,
Yeah.
that was some classic.
There's some good stuff there.
That's some really good stuff.
Was
But
it
you
the-
could
was
tell
it-
that
was that
they'd
the
all
Friars
sharpened
Club
their
or
claws
something?
and their teeth
Yeah.
or whatever on some comedic insult.
Phyllis Diller and all those people. Oh my God. But that's like we were talking about on the way over here. You only saw like Phyllis Diller or Don Rickles on like Johnny Carson. Like nowadays you can look YouTube, you can watch their whole history. Back then, if you found out, Don Rickles was gonna be on Johnny Carson, you couldn't wait till 11:30. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna get to see Don Rickles for the first time in 6 months. Now you just have everything at your, you can watch it. Don Rickles, I'll see it for the next 4 hours. Watching Don Rickles, and so it was like back then it was really an event to see something like that.
Right.
Like the next day, everybody was talking about it. Just
What fascinates me about that fact too is, and it's true, and I remember this growing up. But like you said, Johnny Carson came on at 11:30,
right.
ended at 12:30. It seems like no one's up anymore at that hour. David Letterman came on at 12:30 at night, and he was a household.
Yeah.
And people would be like, "Did you see what Dave did last?" How did we do all that? Like,
Well,
I feel
I
like people were tireless or something.
Well,
Like,
I was saying that on the way over.
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon and those guys are still doing it, but I'm never awake.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, they might as well be dead.
Well, it's also weird. Like now, if you want, if you want to watch Fallon or something, I can like sit
Just
there
watch
at
them the next
8
day.
o'clock. Well, you can watch it at 8 o'clock on YouTube because they're filmed, like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever in California. So you can watch it
On demand.
Yeah.
On demand.
On demand.
But it was just like like people. It's like now, have you seen this movie? And people are like, oh yeah, I've seen it on video. I'm like, oh my God. When I grew up, if you told somebody you saw a movie, that meant you drug your ass down to the theater and watched the movie. It's like, oh yeah, I've seen it 10 times. If you had seen it 10 times, you would have had to pay $2.50 each time. It cost you $25 to see it.
We can just watch some clips.
I know.
The trailer, a few clips. I got the gist. I feel like I saw it.
These kids.
I remember when I used to be able to go see Rin Tin Tin on Saturday afternoons for bottle caps.
What?
And it was the Dixie Theater was doing this special that for like 20 Coca-Cola bottle caps, you could see the movie for free. And it was like a Rin Tin Tin was the feature, and it always started with a Batman first. And I remember tying a magnet to a string and dropping it down into the Coke machines to fish out enough
Dang.
Wow.
bottle caps to go.
That's a great
That's
story.
some vintage memories.
Yeah,
there.
that's a
it
good
almost
one.
sounds like it came from your childhood or something.
Yeah, that's a classic.
It was,
Now,
that was
what's the theater on the
Are we
on
still
Beverly?
on?
Is that
Dixie. That's the one.
I remember when my brother was like 15 or something, and my mom went to, there was an R-rated movie, and my mom took him and his girlfriend. He was like 15 or 16, and the lady working there said, and my mom's like the nicest, non-controversial person in the world. And so the woman says R-rated, and my mom says, I understand, I'm here with them taking them in. She's like, nope, they've got to be 18 to get in. She's like, I'm here with them. The woman wouldn't let them in. My mom, after that, never went back to the Dixie.
Just
it's like
never stepping foot back in
she
that
gave
place.
she gave the pat fuck them and just never went back in there. She's like, I'll never come back in here again. R-rated movie means if I'm with them, I can take them in here. And just she still talks about that. I was like, Mom, it's the only time I've ever.
Well, that is the rule, though.
That's
right?
like the only time I've ever known you were upset. But I think if you have somebody with you, you can take them. You can take
I
them
don't know
in
if
there.
that's true. I feel like that's PG. Parental guidance.
Well, that means
Is
you should have
PG.
some common sense before you send them in there.
Is
R
that what
means you can't send it.
restricted.
Gosh, I wonder what she was taking them to see.
I was with you at first, but the more I think about it, I feel like G was okay. PG was with parental guidance.
No, we could go see PG movies.
you
when
could
we were
go see
kids,
it.
Yeah, I think you'd have a
you're right.
parent for an R.
And R was unless accompanied by.
Yeah.
So you just get your older
pissed off-
brother to
pissed
take
off
you,
mom.
right? Well, folks, that's a wrap. That's going
All
to do
right,
it for this
kids.
week's edition of Jabber John. So fun to be with everybody again. Thank you
Yeah,
both for
that
doing
was,
this.
That was very nice.
It was
Remember,
lovely.
7 o'clock tomorrow at Cider Samara, the Findels are playing.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know who will be there.
you might have a sighting.
Might have a sighting.
Kyle might be in the house.
Yep, I'll be there. Mr. Moore will be there. We'll be talking about chemistry.
We're
And-
torn between the Fendels and Stanton and Brian Elijah Smith and Harrisonburg.
right.
I don't know. Maybe we'll do it all. We'll see. Love you all. See you next
Yep.
week.
Do something fun tomorrow night.
Bye-bye.